And today on Newsmakers, we're talking to Bill Fuller, who works and lives in New York City as a musician, a singer-songwriter, and also does a lot of audio production for television. And welcome. Glad to have you with us here on KNWT.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Now, maybe we should explain why we're talking to a guy from New York City and why he's here in Powell, Wyoming.
Well, I actually grew up in South Dakota on a small lake just outside Sioux Falls. And so, we usually make a couple of trips back to South Dakota just to visit family. I have lots of family in South Dakota and Nebraska. We were going to the Black Hills on a ski trip, and one of my wife's dear friends is a professor here also at the college. So we thought, hey, let's make the extra trip out and visit since we've never been here before. So,
well, that's great, and we're glad to have you here. I wonder if maybe you could just give us a little bit of an overview about some of the different kinds of things that you're involved in, because you are a singer-songwriter, but you have other facets of your career that you're involved in as well. And I wonder if you could just kind of fill us in on what that range of things includes.
Well, I sing, I play guitar, I write music, I record it. I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston and studied music production and engineering. So I do a lot of work in audio engineering and music production, predominantly to pay the bills these days. I do a lot of work field recording for video productions. So we do lots of work for ABC News, lots of corporate videos, internal corporate videos. So that's basically what I do to pay the bills because I'm not a full-time musician. That's basically it. And when I'm not doing that, I'm writing music and recording. I have a recording studio in my apartment in Manhattan and about to release this CD, which we're going to hear some cuts off of today.
Okay. So how did you get your start in music? It sounds like that was really the first passion and continues to be a passion for you. But how did you get started in music?
Yeah, well, some of my earliest memories I have are just hearing music playing in the house. My father is a huge music fan, and it would be very rare to be in my dad's house, even to this day, to not hear music blasting constantly. Louder than most people would listen probably too. And some of my biggest influences musically are the same type of music that I grew up listening to that he's a huge fan of, like the Eagles and Billy Joel and Crosby, Stills and Nash, just to name a few. And so, my earliest influences and memories are of listening to that music, my dad playing it all the time. Of course, and, going through school, I was involved in tons of music-related things. I played trumpet in high school. I was in all the choirs and swing choir and jazz bands and marching band. And then I went off to college, and I was in a cover band. We played lots of bars at Iowa State University. That was the first college I went to. And I was involved in musicals, and then I transferred to Berklee College of Music, which was even more diving deeper in, learning about audio recording and music production and being in tons of voice-related things and playing with other musicians and jams, putting on recitals of my own original music, just like tons and tons of music experiences from that regard. Yeah.
And so what brought you to New York eventually, going through some of those experiences?
Yeah. Well, the head of the music production engineering department at Berklee helped me land a job at one of the top recording studios in Manhattan called Right Track Recording. And so right out of college, I moved to Manhattan, and first day on the job, I was making an espresso for David Bowie. It's pretty crazy.
What was that like?
Oh, it was quite an experience to be in a recording studio with that echelon of artists. It's a very eye-opening experience, especially somebody like me who started out in South Dakota, working my way all the way up to being in one of the top recording studios in Manhattan. It's a very different world. But yeah, it was a huge learning experience to be in that studio. I worked there for about 2 years with lots of different positions. I was working as a general assistant, then an engineering assistant. Then I became an engineering technician, where we would go in and repair any equipment if anything broke or anything like that. So yeah, it was a huge learning experience.
How did those musical influences or experiences influence you? You talked about your music growing up that you heard in the house, but being in a studio like that and hearing some of these different musicians, did some of that seep into your thinking, or did you just try and kind of separate yourself from those things that you were hearing on the job in terms of what you were trying to do personally?
Yeah, I think the biggest influence of working in that recording studio was, because when I got out of college, I thought I wanted to be a music producer. I thought I wanted to make records. But the unfortunate reality, I think, of the way that the music industry was at the time, and it is now, it's even worse now. I saw guys doing it. I saw guys like Frank Filippetti, who's a very famous music producer and engineer. He's doing James Taylor's next album, which would be like the ultimate dream for me. I got to meet James Taylor too, which was amazing. But I saw the type of life that these guys were living. The way studio time is booked, they'll book you on a lockout for the day, which is a 14-hour day. And if you're the assistant, you're there an hour before everybody else shows up, and you're there hours after everybody leaves. So you're putting in 16-hour days, 18-hour days. You could do that for a month straight without a day off, even if a band's in there making an album there. It's so I just thought, wow, man, I love this, but I don't know if I want to have that type of lifestyle. It's just so much. I mean, I'm passionate about music. I love it, but there's other things I love in life too. You know, I live in Manhattan, the biggest cultural place in the world, and I want to experience Manhattan too. So yeah, I mean, that was probably the biggest thing that I learned about being in that studio, learning that there's more to it than just the music and recording. It's a lifestyle, and I'm not so sure that I want to do that. Yeah.
So I wonder if you could describe a little bit or talk a little bit about the process that you go through in writing a song or putting an album together, strictly as a writer and performer.
Sure. Usually when I'm writing a song, I'll pick up the acoustic guitar and I'll just start improvising, just playing different chords, different grooves, and eventually, usually if I'm tinkering around enough, I'll come up with something that I'll like. And then so I'll try to form that into, okay, does this sound like a chorus or is it a verse? And then maybe try to come up with another part that works with that. And then once I sort of have like the basic groove and structure of what I think might be a song, I'll start improvising, singing, just not even any words, just notes over the top of it, trying to come up with an interesting, unique melody that works with those chords. And then once I have the melody worked out and the chords, then I'll sit down and try to write lyrics that might work with that melody. That's not how I always do it, but that's most of the time how I end up writing a song.
So the music comes first and then the lyric after that.
Yeah. I mean, I have done it the other way. Like, for example, when my sister got married, she gave me some letters that she had written to her husband and said, hey, maybe you can work with these words and turn that into a song. And actually, that's kind of easier because I'm a musician first and the lyricist is not my strength. And so it was very easy to just sort of chop apart those words and turn that into a song and come up with a melody really fast. So I don't know, it just depends. It's like any other artist, I think, seeking inspiration, in that moment of where, oh yeah, that's the aha moment where I came up with this great melody or this great thing,
So how does that process of a melody emerging really work for you? I mean, are you drawing on things that you've heard in the past? Are you trying to just sort of divorce yourself from other kinds of things that you've done before and try and keep it fresh? How do you approach that part of creating a melody?
I think it's all on the subconscious level. I don't think I really think about whether I'm being influenced or not. I'm sure that I am. It's impossible for anybody to not be influenced by stuff you're listening to and stuff that you love. So, I mean, it only makes sense if you listen to my music and probably hear a lot of the influence of some of the music that I listen to, like I was saying before, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and Billy Joel, James Taylor, the old school songwriters, which everybody has certainly heard of a lot of those artists, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what about in terms of the lyrics then? Are you drawing on your personal experiences? Are you trying to think about larger, more universal kinds of themes? How do you approach that?
Yeah, I think most of my lyrics are based upon personal experiences that I've had. Not all of them, but I think the better songs are usually based on some moment in time where something happened to me that had a real impact, whether it was being in love for the first time or breaking up with somebody, one of those heartbreak type songs, or being in New York on 9/11, for example, that being a huge impact on you. Those are the types of experiences that I usually draw on and come up with a story for writing lyrics.
Now, how many albums have you done previously?
I've only done one album on my own, just self-released it. And the second one, it's been a real labor of love. I've been working on it a lot of years, trying to get it just right and get it the way that I want it to be. And hopefully I'll be releasing it sometime this year, maybe in the summer or this fall.
Okay. Now, will that, again, be essentially self-released
Yeah.
and you're not with a label or anything like that?
Right. Yeah, I'll just put it for sale on my website. I'm sure it'll be on iTunes and, CD Baby. So anybody in the world, if they've heard of me and they like it, they can go check it out.
Well, how has that change things? Because it used to be that recording artists had to be signed with a label to get the distribution and a lot of the promotion kinds of things and get radio stations to play your songs. But now that's really changed with iTunes now the largest retailer of music in the United States. And how does that change things for somebody like you as an independent artist?
It's great for any musician out there. It's very empowering to be able to, I mean, with the revolution in recording too. I mean, it used to be you had to go into a very expensive recording studio just to make a decent sounding recording. Now you can buy, a cheap laptop and a little interface, and you can make an album in your bedroom. It might not sound like a major studio if you don't know what you're doing, but you can do it. And not only that, you can make your album very inexpensively, and then you can put it up on the internet, and anybody in the world can listen to your music. And with YouTube also, now people are, there's cameras in just about every computer these days too. So people can record themselves and not only have audio, they can have video, and anybody can check them out. It's very empowering. It's very cool. The whole secret, if your goal is to be commercially successful with your art, the real trick is promotion. It's great that anybody in the world can go check you out, but how do you get people to come check out your music? That's the real trick, and that's usually why most people that try to be singer-songwriters or any other type of music or band, they try to be commercially successful. They have to tour. They have to go out and play show after show all over the world and build a following and get their name out there and sell CDs at shows, and then hopefully once they have a big enough fan base, they're telling all their other friends, oh man, check out this great singer-songwriter, Bill Fuller. You might really like his music, and it just builds from that. That's the real trick behind it all. It's great that the internet is there, but you got to have some sort of promotion if you want to have success. Yeah.
Does it mean that we have better musicians and better music, or that we just have a lot more of it? And how does that affect the quality of the music?
Yeah, I think that all depends on your point of view and your opinion. I mean, for me personally, I think that there's probably another amazing James Taylor out in the world who nobody knows who he is because the music industry is the way it is. I mean, it's great that it's able to be out there, but it's such a huge database. I mean, the internet is just endless. And so trying to hone it in to find those people can be very tricky. I mean, there's people trying to solve that solution, with like, well, if you like this artist, you might want to consider this. That's on Amazon and iTunes. I'm not fully convinced that that's 100% accurate, but occasionally they'll throw something at me where I'll be like, oh yeah, I kind of like that. I'm into that. All right, yeah. So,
but you also get a lot of stuff where did that come from?
Yeah. Well, I think that just sort of illustrates how different people are from one another. Everybody's unique. Everybody has different tastes in music, and a lot of those models are based on a huge pool of a bunch of people's tastes, and since everybody's different, there is no computer algorithm that's going to mimic a person perfectly, and everybody's going to like different types of things. So I think that's probably why the models aren't exactly accurate.
Well, you were talking about the next James Taylor being out there or another James Taylor being out there.
Yeah.
And it might be somebody from South Dakota, but it also might be somebody in China or India.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so the whole sphere of where music comes from and the accessibility of that and the diversity of that has changed by orders of magnitude, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. I mean, the whole, instead of just thinking about music in the U.S., thinking about music in the whole world, it's totally amazing.
Okay. Well, we want to listen, Bill, to a little bit of your music, and you've brought along your new CD for us to listen to. So I wonder if you could maybe start us out and kind of introduce one of the tracks that you'd like for us to listen to, and maybe tell us a little bit about how that came about.
Sure. I think the first track we should play is a track called Something from a Dream. Musically, it's a little bit different than some of my other tunes, and I like to play around with a lot of different styles of music, kind of like in the way Sting does. If you listen to a lot of Sting records, he'll have a tune that's kind of country, he'll have another tune that's more rock, another tune that's more pop, and this tune in particular is very jazz influenced. And the whole song started with me sort of playing around with these drum loops. I use a program on my computer called Digital Performer, and it gives you tons of control over sound, and there's lots of virtual instruments, and there was one virtual drum machine instrument I was playing around with a lot, and I came up with a lot of these different drum loops that were sort of working on top of each other. And I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. Maybe I can turn that into a song. And the more I played around with it, I realized there was a song I had written. It was one of the first songs I ever wrote about 20 years ago. And it was really basic and simple. It's one of those first attempts. But I basically reharmonized I kept the melody, but reharmonized all the chords to have all these jazz chords and started riffing around with that. And then the way I did a lot of my recordings is I have a lot of great friends that are amazing musicians, and I'll bring them in to play other parts, like the bass and the guitar. And on this track in particular, one of my father's best friends, when they went to school at the University of Nebraska, they were in a band together. And he actually lives in New Jersey, teaches at Yeshiva University, but he's an amazing trumpet player. So I brought him in to play trumpet on the track, which is really fun. The other thing about the song that's kind of different, the first half of the song has a more traditional song form. It has me singing over the top, but then the whole second half of the song turns into kind of this improv jazz jam. And what I think is really interesting is the story of the song is retold kind of in music form, in the way these guys just improvised, but it really is kind of like telling the same whole story again in the whole second half of the song. So it's pretty interesting to listen to. And lyrically, the song is about a first person encounter with love, first love, and everybody that gets excited and thrilled to think about somebody that might like them as much as they like somebody else. And so it's kind of a young, naive encounter. So that's basically the song.
Okay, so let's listen to Bill Fuller and Something from a Dream.
Music stopped and
Once again, that is Bill Fuller's song, Something from a Dream. Bill Fuller, a New York musician, singer-songwriter, who's visiting in Powell currently and took the time to join us to talk a little bit about a new album that he is in preparation with. And Bill, you've got the second track on the new album is called Peace of Mind. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about how that song came about and what you were thinking about as you put that together.
Yeah, that's an older song also that I kind of recently took a hard listen to and thought, you know what, this song could be a lot better than it is. So I kind of locked myself in the room for a couple of days and completely rewrote the melody over the same chords. It's a really nice song because it has a positive message, which is not all that common, I think, in a lot of pop music. And I really love the message because I think most people at one point in time have gone through a tough time in their life, whether they were abused or had a tough situation, a tough moment. And this song, sort of the message is if you find somebody to talk about your problems with, you know, whether it's a friend or a family member or a therapist, and really work through whatever issue that you're having. I mean, you know, maybe you're depressed. The message of the song is don't sit around and suffer. Talk through your problems, and then you'll find your peace. And that's the basic message of the song. So,
do you find that a lot of people tend to avoid that because they think it's going to be more painful than the problem itself?
Yeah, or some people just get stuck in the moment and they can't find their way through it. I mean, it's happened to me. You know, I've been horribly depressed after breaking up with somebody, for example. And sometimes you just need time to go by to get over things. But also, if you don't have somebody to talk to really sort through your feelings and emotions and what you're thinking, you could be stuck for years in that state. My dad's a psychiatrist, so I kind of wrote this song with my dad in mind too, because I think he spent most of his life trying to help people get over problems and hopefully make their life better and happier.
Okay, well, let's give it a listen here. Here's Bill Fuller and Peace of Mind.
Changed your life. You were a victim of abuse. justice will be served. But don't be afraid, do not hold back. You can tell me anything that you are feeling or concealing. Be revealing, start your healing. Live today like it's your last. Rise above what's in your past. Follow dreams deep in your heart. Work to win. Let it unwind, and you will find your peace of mind. I know you'll find your peace of mind. I hope you'll find your peace of mind. I hope you'll find your peace of mind. I know you'll find your peace.
That's Bill Fuller's song Peace of Mind, and the next track on the album is one called Goodbye. So again, these are kind of simple titles and are pretty broadly able to be interpreted, but what did you have in mind with this song?
Well, Goodbye is your typical heartbreak song. It's a song that's based on a true story for me, and I was in a relationship and I got dumped. The other person decided they'd had enough with me, and I was totally blindsided. Like, I thought everything was going along great, and all of a sudden, wham, this person wants out of the relationship. And that's so hard to get over when you're blindsided like that. So this song is sort of like coming to terms with saying goodbye to that person who you're still totally in love with, but they don't want to be with you anymore, so you don't really have a choice. You have to move on. You have to sort through your feelings, and probably everybody can relate to that scenario. So it's a very universal message, and it's a great song. I recorded this whole thing in my apartment. I tipped my mattress up on its side and set up a drum kit and put up mics, and I went in the bathroom with my guitar and had a bass player out in the other room. We recorded the whole thing in my apartment, and then I went to a friend's who had an upright piano in his apartment, so I brought the tracks over there, and he overdubbed piano, and everything else was just done in my apartment in Manhattan. And so I think it sounds great for what it is. So it's a lot of
So you
fun.
don't have to have a huge facility and high-tech equipment to make good music.
Yeah, I mean, all these tracks on my CD, with the exception of a couple where I cut the drums in a studio, everything else was done just in my room, mixed in my room, and I engineered and produced all these tracks myself too.
Okay. Well, and I think about some of the early recordings that we know were just people playing on their front porches, and I think NPR has done a little bit of that with their a Tiny Desk concert series, where they just get musicians together informally to make music and not
Sure.
worry about all of the laser light shows and things that seem to go along with performance these days.
Yeah, well, music's a funny thing. Like, I mean, you listen to some of the earliest recordings done with one microphone, and to a certain degree, it really doesn't matter, it's just my personal opinion, but it really doesn't matter how great of a quality of a microphone you're using or a mic pre or interface or what you're recording on. If the music is happening and it really says something to somebody, whether it's musically or lyrically, that's what matters more than anything else. So yeah, you can do a lot these days. It's great, but you really have to think about what are you creating? What message are you putting out in the world, whether it's musically or lyrically? Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's listen to your musical message here in the song Goodbye.
all you're thinking is, are you the culprit? What led her to this determination? Was the issue poor communication? Maybe a bad choice, or something said wrong, some action you took, or someone else came along. Not sure you'll get by without her at your side. It's like a landslide just buried you alive. Will you
And that was from Bill Fuller's new album, a cut title entitled Goodbye. And we want to kind of wrap things up with another song called Let It Breathe. And what's the background on this one, Bill?
Well, Let It Breathe is a song I wrote right after 9/11 happened. I was at home when the towers went down, and my wife had been out on the street going to an appointment, and I was sleeping in that morning because I had stayed up late, probably working on music the night before. And she woke me up out of a sound sleep, just hysterical. I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? We turn on the TV, and literally 30 seconds later, we watched the towers come down on TV. And to think that, oh my God, this is happening a mile from us down the island. It was just, it impacts everybody, of course, but to be that close to it, and, Manhattan's our hometown. That's what we call home. It was very traumatic. But this song sort of talks about how the world has been affected by 9/11. And one of the things that was very upsetting to me is right after it happened, the world sort of came together. Everybody was being positive and feeling sorry for what happened to the U.S., and everybody was putting out this positive message. And I think that George Bush in particular single-handedly squandered the largest opportunity of the world by, instead of embracing what the world was offering, all this huge positive message to, for peace, he just used it against the world instead of bringing it together. So it's just very upsetting to me. So the song sort of talks about how, 9/11 has changed the world.
Okay. In the previous song, Goodbye, you were talking about acceptance on kind of a personal level, somebody leaving in a relationship, and how do you come to terms with that, and how do you accept that? And here we are 10 years after the September 11th, 2001, and how have you personally and residents of New York and the world come to terms with acceptance of that event, do you think?
I don't know. I think for some people, they're still not over it. I think there's so many people that are still experiencing post-traumatic stress from what happened. I'm sure that there's still people afraid to get on a plane. I'm sure that there's people who cry on a daily basis because they've lost somebody that they knew who was in the towers. And they relive it every year. In September, they put it on TV again and again. I'm sure it's so tough. I'm sure it's easier than in the immediate years after, but yeah, it's tough. And we recently were down there doing a video shoot actually for some German television show. And the memorial is actually very cool. They have these really interesting waterfalls that show the footprint of where the towers were. And the water goes down along the outer perimeter of where the foundation of the building would have been. And when somebody described it to me, I thought, I don't know about that. I don't know if that's really appropriate. But actually being there, seeing it, and hearing the sound of that water going, and just the way it's been designed, it's actually really thoughtful. It's a really nice memorial, I think. Yeah, it's very cool.
Well, I suspect that we are going to be dealing with this for a long period of time. And I suspect for New Yorkers particularly, when you walk down the street and you think about the view that's no longer there, that you no longer see those towers there when it was so much a part of day-to-day life and, just a part of all of the landscape that you live with, it's a little bit like for those of us in Wyoming, suddenly a mountain that we lived with every day is no longer there. It's sort of like Heart Mountain disappearing overnight. And
totally. How
do we look at the landscape now?
Yeah, it is very different to look downtown and not see those towers there. It's very strange. And it always strikes me, too, to watch an older movie that had a skyline shot with those two towers in it.
When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah, that classic shot of Washington Square Park through the arch, and the towers are right there. It's such a beautiful shot. And, I live very near Washington Square Park. Every time I walk through there, I always think of that, actually. That exact movie, that exact shot. Yeah, it definitely sticks with you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's give the song a listen, and it's called Let It Breathe by Bill Fuller. And that's Bill Fuller's song "Let It Breathe" from his new album, under preparation, getting ready to release. Bill, when do you think you'll actually have it out for people to give a listen to?
I don't have an exact deadline since I'm doing it on my own, but I have 2 more tracks that I'm trying to finish up, and once they're done, that's when it'll come out. So hopefully by this summer or maybe this fall, I'll have it fully up and for sale on the internet so people can check it out.
And Bill, if somebody is interested in finding out a little bit more about you and the music and also how to obtain this, where would they go online?
Yeah, the best place right now would be my website, which is just fullerfun.com, FULLERFUN.com. You can go there and buy my first CD if you want. There's a link that takes you off to SoundClick, which is a third-party site that sells CDs. And there's a couple other clips of like some videos that I've scored music to and lyrics. But once the CD's finished, I'm going to put up a new website, and you'll be able to get all the music there and other things happening. Yeah.
And it'll still be fun.
Yep.
And you don't plan to do a lot of touring and things like that to promote it? It's just going to be pretty much online promotion?
Yeah, I'm going to take it one step at a time because I love living in Manhattan and experiencing everything Manhattan has to offer. And the idea of living on the road, like a lot of singer-songwriters do, is not so appealing to me at this point in time. But I'm sure I'll do a CD release show in Manhattan and play some shows and sort of see how people respond to it, see what sort of feedback I get. And if the message is great, if people are really into it, maybe I'll take it to the next level and do a little bit of touring, play some shows in Boston, maybe in DC, stick to the East Coast and take it from there. But one step at a time, got to finish the CD first.
Sure. Well, when you're immersed in it, it's a little hard to think beyond that sometimes. But do you have some other long-term projects that you're considering or that are kind of on the back burner right now but might be future projects?
I don't. I mean, I've had lots of ideas of things that I want to do, but I've been trying to just ignore them all, finish this CD, and once that's done, then we'll see what the next project becomes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Bill Fuller, thanks very much for joining us today, and we'll look forward to hearing more from you musically as well as this new album. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you.
We've been talking to singer-songwriter Bill Fuller from New York City during his visit to Powell. This is Newsmakers on KNWT, Cody, Wyoming.